let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk a little bit about accountability today. I know that is a very broad topic. If you're like me, I had to Google and be like, what the heck? Like, what do I do on accountability, right? So just thinking about creating a culture of accountability in our workplace is what we're going to discuss a little bit today. It'll be a little bit more review, hopefully, for some of you, and then we'll do a very small takeaway activity at the end, okay? So for today, like I said, we're going to go over just a few things. So primarily, what is the definition of accountability? What are some of the different types, the strategies, maybe overcoming some challenges when it comes to accountability in ourselves, in our team, in our workplace? And then what we can do is a call of action to kind of wrap up our day. So I need a volunteer who can write legibly, or I will pick on you. Thank you. If you want to grab one of the markers and write up here, I'm going to ask you all to think about for a minute, what do you think accountability is, and why does it matter? So who wants to take a stab at that? If you mess up, own it, okay? Anything else? Responsible. I think we might have that. Oh, we have a reliable. Integrity. And you don't have to write this, but why do we think those things are important? Or are they important? Maybe you don't think they're important.
I think it helps us be efficient.
Okay, helps with efficiency.
It helps us grow.
Helps us grow.
Helps with stress.
Helps with stress, okay.
I think there's a big humility factor in it too, all those things. People can count on you.
People can count on you, provides humility. Trust. Helps build trust. See, we don't even need to do this. It's like your whole moral compass. That's a great one to end on. You don't have to write this down. Thank you. You can sit down now. Thank you. So let's look at what is accountability. A very, very simple definition that kind of sums it up. A commitment to integrity, transparency, and responsible behavior. Simple as that, right? You kind of all said that. Being responsible, being reliable, showing up on time, having good follow through, our moral compass, right? That's exactly what accountability is. It's that willingness to accept when you've done wrong, accept your behaviors, accept you're responsible. And working for the Salvation Army, it also aligns with our mission, right? Aligning with our faith and our trust in our community standards. That's what we're about. Being responsible, good stewards of our finances that we get for our programs, and teaching the kids in Henley and Creator's Corner, and serving the vulnerable populations, right? So if we don't have staff that have good accountability, we're not going to have that missional faith and trust in building that good stewardship. And then we really hit on the why accountability matters, right? I think, Lewis, did you say builds trust? Someone said, yeah, exactly, builds trust. It enhances our teamwork and our efforts. And it's really that Christ-like integrity and stewardship. I kind of think about several years ago when the big thing was, what would Jesus do, right? WWJD. They were on bracelets. They were on everything. So when you're thinking of accountability, what would Jesus do? If he would do it, sure, go for it. If not, you might want to think twice about it. So there are 3 types. We're not going to dive too much into all of them, but just very quickly, we have personal, professional, and team accountability. Obviously, that personal is yourself, right? Taking accountability for yourself, your actions, your own awareness, what you do. And then we also have professional, taking accountability. How do you do your work? How are you organizing your goals? Are you showing up to work on time? Are you meeting your deadlines? Are you delivering that quality service of work? Or are you just kind of skating by, doing the bare minimum because nobody's noticing, right? And then team accountability. A lot of us work in teams. Some work more in silos, but we work in teams, and holding each other and your team accountable what is everyone's responsibilities? How do we work together? How do we be collaborative? And having that mutual support. So I know probably Allie, you can attest to this, right? When you have a good team and programs, the shelter runs smoother, right? When you have silos of people are not doing their jobs and they're gossiping, your programs don't run as amazing, right? So just thinking about the different types and taking a look at how can we work on ourselves in our teams and our professional capacity. So we're going to talk just a little bit about ways to strategize and promote accountability in those specific areas. All right, so as a leader, right, you have ways, set clear expectations for your team, provide feedback, lead by example. Hopefully we all know that. We have done a ton of trainings with Praise and HR on setting goals and working genius and how to have a good team. And then in yourself, maybe have an accountability partner, reflect on your actions, get feedback from others. So we're gonna do a quick activity. Can I get one? We're gonna break up into two groups. We're gonna do if you supervise or lead people or teams, and then if you do not supervise and lead people and teams, okay? So I need one person from each category to volunteer to kind of be the note taker, if you will. Leaders, who's gonna be my note taker for leaders? Miguel, was that a hand? Thank you. Thanks, Miguel. Non-leaders, you moved, so I saw it out of the corner of my eye. Thanks, Miguel. It's your last day. You can volunteer. Non-leader? Alex. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so can I get all my leaders on this side of the room in a little bubble there, and all my non-leaders on that side? If you want a piece of paper, you can grab a piece of paper to take notes, or you can just talk about what you talked about. All right. Means you have to get up. Okay, everybody stand up.
Do I just go here?
Leaders,
Okay.
non-leaders.
In your roles.
In your roles. All right, so here's what you're going to discuss. What are some things you can do to promote accountability? So those who lead a team, what are some things you can do as the leader of your team to promote accountability? Those who are not supervising or leading somebody at your workplace, what are some things you can do to promote accountability in yourself to support your team? So we're going to talk for about 5 minutes, and then the note taker is just going to report a couple of things that you guys talked about. Ouch. Holding your team members accountable. All right, let's wrap up in another minute. I think our non-leader team needs to get back on track and we'll wrap up. You're good, okay. All right. Okay, we're going to have Alex go first because they're very excited about what their team came up with. So do you want to write just a couple of your main top ones? But tell us a little bit about...
write it first and then I'll...
Okay. All right, so how can you promote accountability? You can use whatever marker. Miguel, do you have 2 or 3 on the top of your head you can jot up here?
I'm not good at writing there, so we can...
You better rely on your team members. All right, when Alex is done, if you just want to jot 2 or 3.
Okay, that's right, girl.
It's like not a contest.
You want me to explain it or just wait?
Yeah, hold on. Wait till she finishes. All right. Well, Alyssa's finishing writing. Alex, do you want to go ahead? What did your team talk about? Maybe your top couple that you thought were really interesting, of some ways that you as an individual can promote accountability within yourself in order to help engage your teams and such.
We talked a lot about collaboration and honesty, and we talked about, and then we talked about encouragement and
Oh.
and then encouragement being having the right attitude.
Okay.
And then above all, we said that no matter what we do, keep it in ourselves that we're doing this for God and we're doing it for His eyes only, and no one else's eyes really matter.
Aw.
So as long as we keep that, everything
That's awesome. Good job. All right. Those who supervise or lead teams at work, who wants to kind of give a snapshot of what you guys talked about?
Okay, what we talked about was regularly meeting often, through Zoom, whatever. Also asking a lot for feedback. Also about creating culture of transparency, a team atmosphere, delegation, thinking together, empowerment type stuff. Also, we talked about learning from mistakes and providing room for growth. Vulnerability, being a model, modeling what you're just talking about. Staying organized, keep notes, follow up. Tracking system, being a chief reminding officers of what they always said to us.
Awesome.
Also, empowerment, being, having mutual respect and trust, building trust. And lastly, we talked about being the example, again, back to being that model.
Awesome. Thank you. Good job. So now I'm going to ask those of you who were on the team that you don't lead anyone, after listening to Miguel's responses of what the leadership team thought was important when it became accountability, what do you guys as non-leaders see as the most important thing when it becomes, when it relates to accountability within your supervisors or leaders? Feedback, okay. Getting feedback from your direct, okay. I see a lot of head nods. Okay, so feedback. Anything else? And encouragement. Okay. Wow. I wouldn't have guessed that.
You want us to say what we want them to do in order for them to be accountable?
Yes.
That seems like them is holding you more accountable.
No, what do you need from your supervisors or leaders to help with your accountability? So getting that feedback, getting that encouragement is important, it seems like, to those. And then on the flip side, those as leaders, what do you need in your teams that will help you promote that accountability within your team as a leader? What do you say is the top one or two things out of some of the things they talked about?
Feedback too, but then ownership. So whatever you are in charge of, or each one of us is in charge of, if we can each own that, and then you're excited about that, that helps with everything.
Gotcha. So feedback from your staff on like, how are you doing? How am I coaching you as a supervisor? And then also, taking accountability and responsibility for your work and follow through. Anything else? Trust. What does that mean?
Trust for both ends. I mean, they need to be able to trust us, and we need to be able to trust them.
Yeah,
That goes a long way.
for sure.
That right there will provide the ability to delegate, all that stuff.
Yeah. So it's interesting that out of both groups, you both said feedback, which I'm wondering, do we do that often? Do we go to our supervisors and give them feedback on how they're supervising? And do we go to our staff regularly and give them feedback on how they're doing? How do you guys feel we're doing in that? See, lots of expressions, lots of quietness. So maybe that's something we all need to work on a little bit more. Okay. Awesome. Okay, let's go into just a little bit more detail. We'll kind of glance through these. So creating accountability in self, we talked about some of these, but setting goals for yourself, making sure that you have SMART goals that you're working on, they're attainable. Maybe finding an accountability partner, something that you want to work on. Ask your peers to hold you accountable for it, a good way to help create that accountability in yourself. Developing a routine, rewarding yourself, celebrating achievements, creating systems for accountability. So as you're thinking about what are the things I as an individual really need to work on in regards to accountability, these are just some things that you can do, like little nuggets, to take away and really chip at some of the things we want to work on. So if we are having some maybe trust issues, maybe working on what can I do to start opening up that trust or trusting others and breaking that down. And then as far as creating accountability a team, really rely on those seasoned staff that have been there a little bit to be that positive influence, that role model. Just because you're not, like Praise said, just because you're not in a leadership role, we're all leaders. And so we all lead by example and model that behavior. And so you don't have to be a supervisor to be a leader, right? You can be a leader in your team and taking that that example of just taking that positive person and really making sure the team is flowing and working on that. As far as also working in a team, working on like that peer and shared accountability. So relying on your peers to do what they say they're going to do and holding them accountable when they're not. It's okay to say like, hey, I remember you were going to work on this and I didn't see it. Do you happen to have that? You don't have to go and be like, you didn't do your job, right? Just help remind them, help keep them accountable. And it's all kind of how you relate that. And then celebrate as a team. When you do have those successes, really celebrate and collaborate as a team. I know some teams celebrate really well. Also be mindful of your financial budgets when you're celebrating your team. I'll just put that out there. Celebrating your team doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out to an extravagant lunch. Maybe taking 15 minutes in your office together and doing something fun or silly or listening to music or just getting together and celebrating, like, we did a great job today. Like, let's take a minute to do that. We'll really build that accountability in your team. And then finally, as a leader, I think we talked a little bit about it, making sure everyone has clear roles. So all of your staff know, what should I be doing? What is the expectation that you expect of me? What are my responsibilities? Really helping your team create those SMART goals. I know we do them every February. That'll be coming up soon as a reminder. Annual evals will be soon. So this is a great kind of reminder of how to make sure we're holding everyone accountable. Really letting your team know, like, how do you define success, right? Maybe I define it one way and you define it a different way. So let your team know, like, here's what I define success as. Let's, as a team, work towards this goal. Encourage questions, foster open communication. I've had supervisors that have their door closed all the time and you're fearful to ask them questions. That really doesn't foster that trust and accountability. So if you're a leader, just make sure you have an open door policy. Your staff know when they can come to you, when not to bother you, because there are times you need quiet times. Encourage questions. Anyone who knows me, I ask a ton of questions. It can be very annoying, I know. It's not because I'm being defiant, but I want to know, I want to learn, I want to grow. And so encourage in your teams, like, ask me questions. If you don't understand something, if you're just curious, why do we do this? Ask. It's okay to ask. It'll help build that trust. And then just promoting that safe space for growth and encouraging that collaboration and celebrating wins and losses just the same as you would as a team. So let's take a breath for a second. What do you all see as the main challenges with kind of doing all of that? Time consuming. What is time consuming?
Just as a person in charge, you're being so busy and sometimes you just want to make sure you're doing what the things that you have, and then you have a big team and you want the challenges to how to balance what you need to do for your team and how you have one-on-one with all your staff and get to know them and the other responsibility you have. So time consuming sometimes it gets in the way.
Sure.
But of course organization and try to set like, and for myself, like today I'm gonna meet with one team, tomorrow I'm doing that does help, but time consuming because the day just goes fast and you have so many things need to be done.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So some of these things don't cost any time at all, right? An encouraging word, having your door open, but those that I need to meet with my staff one-on-one, I need to, provide this training for my staff. Those take time in addition to the other things you have in an 8-hour period that just doesn't always work well. Any other challenges? I think I heard trust from a couple different people, like whether you trust your staff or your coworkers or sometimes even yourself. Anything else? Communication, lack of communication, or the way we communicate?
Because oftentimes there's a lot of misunderstandings. Like
Okay.
if Caleb tells me something, I interpret it a different way than what he intends. So I think I have to hold myself accountable and then make sure I understand what he wanted to do exactly.
Yeah.
So I go ahead and ask a question,
Yes.
even if it's a dumb one or obvious one, which Fran probably she'll be like, "That's an obvious question." You know, not that she like that.
Not to throw Fran under the bus.
She's not like that. There can be environments like that, and I feel like
Exactly.
one of those things. You know, it goes with trust and.
Yeah, so having that open door policy, asking questions, if you have a supervisor who doesn't necessarily encourage that and is like, oh, we already talked about this, is going to really deplete that, right? Because you're not going to want to ask questions and then you're going to just kind of go out your way. So just a couple of the common barriers: lack of clarity in roles and expectations. I know in programming for Red Shield, AAS and HSP a couple years ago, we kind of created this new program-ish and did not clarify roles greatly, and it was a huge mess, right? Any of you who were there? Huge mess. So creating solutions is really just making sure that things are clear-cut. Everyone knows this is what your responsibility is, this is what my responsibility is, will really help that teamwork and accountability flow. Another major challenge, I think, for some is maybe that fear of failure or criticism. Is this a stupid question? Is my supervisor going to think I don't know what I'm doing if I ask this question? What if I do this and it's wrong? Like, how are people going to look at me, right? But if we're fostering that accountability, that supportive team, that open work culture, that will help diminish those things, because then we'll feel okay if we fail or asking those questions. And so just making sure we're working on that. And then I know for me personally, resistance to change. I don't like change, not even one bit. So making sure that each time we do have a change in our policies, our programs, what we do, making sure that we're providing good training and resources, I know definitely helps. Okay? I just threw this in there because I really liked this saying. It says, it's impossible to create a high-performing team where there's a lack of accountability. Why? Because when no one takes ownership of making those decisions, addressing issues, and solving problems, things just aren't going to get done. Bottom line. So we're going to do a quick call to action, and then we'll wrap up with any questions. So Alex, would you mind handing out some cards and markers to each table, por favor? So Alex is going to hand out accountability cards. So these cards are just a little nugget that you can take with you to help yourself or your peers hold you accountable. So you're going to take a card and write your name at the top of it. I'm not going to check these, so if you don't do it, you don't do it. But I highly encourage you to do it and take something with you. But write your name and maybe 2 or 3 just simple things that you can work on. Not long sentences or paragraphs, just something you can work on your card. I'm going to throw a challenge out there for you. If you are really bold, give your card to a peer and ask them to hold you accountable. Ouch, right? Because now someone else is helping us. So if you want to take just a minute, write down 2, maybe 3 little bullet points of things you would like to hold yourself accountable for in the next, say, 30 days. It doesn't have to be major. It can be something simple. Would anyone like to share? You totally don't have to, but would anyone like to share just one thing that they want to work on for accountability? Go for it.
I think that, especially with my level of like initiative and wanting to get things done, I tend to pick and choose based on like how creative or how I want it. So I want to keep myself accountable for keeping my initiative level the same regardless
Ooh.
of what the project is.
That's a good one. That's a hard one, though. So keeping your initiative and engagement level the same on those projects that are not so fun. Those are not the ones you necessarily want to do. I think all of us, I know I do too. Those go at the bottom of my list and they keep going over. I think for me, I was thinking about this, and we're going to wrap up. But I was thinking about this. I was at, ironically, I was at church, our core council the other day. And we were talking about, I don't know, soliciting donations or something. Is the development team here? Am I going to get in trouble? And one of our core members was like, well, can't I just go solicit donations? And, the pastor was like, well, we really need to get permission and what have you. I'm like, well, technically, if they do it and you don't know about it, you can't get in trouble. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't look good either. And I notice when I say, well, technically, that's my way of trying to justify what I want to do versus maybe the ethical or the right thing. And so for me, I know one of my accountability goals is if I think in my head, well, technically, that should be my cue to stop in the moment and really think. Like, think before you speak, Shannon. Because what's going to come next is probably not the most ethical decision ever. So. Okay, so you have your card. You have just a couple of things you want to hold yourself accountable to. Again, you can keep these for yourself, or if you're really willing and ready, give your card to someone else and give them permission. Please, can you hold me accountable for this for the next 30 days? And then I encourage you, set on your Outlook calendars, set a meeting with yourself in 30 days to check in on your accountability goal and see, have you made progress? Have you forgotten all about it? What have you? All right, any final comments, questions, or thoughts before praise wraps us up? Okay, will you pass your markers down to the right? Oh, Alex is gonna get them, thank you. Yes. Okay. Ooh. I know, I bought them for a craft I was gonna do, and then we're gonna do vision boards.